Hi, it's Annie with Potter USA, and I'm going to show you how to press this impression die, BZ883. Because it's fairly deep, I am starting with 16 gauge fine silver. Place the metal over the design, and then choose a piece of urethane that will fit within the design itself. You don't want to use a large piece of urethane. Then you want to center it under the tool steel pusher in your hydraulic press. And we'll press it one time, and then we will shift the placement of the urethane just a little bit, rotate the die, and press it again to get a more even pressing. I'm using our electric Rincon, but the same process would apply if you're using the manual. You can see that I didn't get any of the detail, but I have formed that metal fairly deep into the die, so you are going to want to work slowly and anneal your metal regularly. I've annealed it, and I'm going to place a small piece of urethane again within that depression. I just want to slowly start forcing that metal down to the deepest part of the die first, before I focus on getting other detail. And for deep dies like this, it's handy to have some really busted up pieces of urethane that you can use to fill the depression. That just helps take up the volume and apply more pressure. So let's take a look at this. And you can see we've gotten more of the detail, but more importantly, I'm forcing that metal down towards the center or the deepest part of the die even more. So we'll anneal it again, and we're going to repeat that same process of filling the cavity with these smaller pieces of urethane just to take up that space, and then adding a slightly larger piece of urethane on top. That urethane is still smaller than the depression itself. And now we will press it. I'm going to shift the urethane a little bit and rotate the die about a quarter of a turn just to make sure I get an even pressing. And you can see I am getting that bottom or the deepest part of the die to be more defined, but I still want to anneal it one more time, and then we'll press it again. I have filled up the impression with the urethane from before, but I've added a small piece on top, and that's just going to continue to add more volume to that urethane so that it will form the metal even more in the die. Here you can see I've gotten almost everything, but that top edge of the oval in the center could be a little bit more crisp. So I'm going to anneal it one more time and fill that cavity with small pieces of urethane, just like I have before. So I'm filling the cavity with small pieces, then I'm putting a slightly larger piece on top, and then like I did in the previous pressing, I'm putting a slightly larger piece of urethane on top of my stack, and that is just to add even more volume so that it presses evenly and completely fills the form. And there we go. That is a pretty dang complete pressing. The key to pressing this and any deeper impression die is to work slowly. You're asking a flat piece of metal to go really deep and to stretch a long way, so be sure to anneal it as many times as necessary. Next, cut out the stamping. I'm using a 4/0 blade. And then after you cut it out, you want to file the edges, sand, and refine the edges as desired. And here's the finished stamping. I put a patina on it so you could see the detail. There are lots of different ways you could finish this. You could set a stone on that top flat place. You could solder on shop plate accents, set little stones. There's just a variety of things you can do, whatever you would like. But here's how I believe this design was originally designed to be used. I could be wrong, but this is just my best guess. Drill a hole near one end in the center oval, and then I'm angling my saw blade out, like the top of my saw frame is at about a 45-degree angle to the table, and that gives me a beveled or a chamfered cut. So rather than the cut being straight up and down along that top edge, I have cut that center section, that center oval out at a slight angle. And what this angle does is it allows me to take the piece that I cut out, flip it over, and insert it into the back from the underside of the stamping to create what will be a seat for a cabochon. This won't be a perfect fit, so you'll probably need to either do some filing. You may need to forge this cutout a little bit more if you need to make it a little bit wider. But this is a really fairly simple way to create a seat for a cabochon. So use sandpaper, files, anything you need to get that oval to fit flat and flush on the inside of the bezel, and then solder from the back to secure that bezel backplate in place. So cut the center circle out at an angle, flip the piece over, insert it from the back, make sure that it's level, solder it, and then you are ready to set your stone.